Welcome back to Life and Style. Wednesday edition is all about relationships. Remember, the conversation that is going on right now is what we had earlier on the mandate, and it's all about long distance relationships. Do they work? And if they do, what's the secret? Keep that conversation going. Remember, the hashtag is KTN Life and Style. Right about now, though, it's all about forgiveness. And I have to say, this segment, Pastor Chris, does a number on me.
Right.
Every time I sit there and, listen to conversation that you're having here, it speaks to me in a way. And I hope it speaks to you as well as you're at home and watching this. I don't know what you have for us today, but I'm sure it's moving.
Well, today, I've got this wonderful couple. They've been married 8 years, Bernard and Judy. But that has not always been the story.
Okay.
Judy was into drugs before she got to meet Bernard, who also at some point was into drugs. And that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right. Judy, tell me your story.
My name is Judy, or Mrs. Mwangi. I was born in the village, brought up in the village. And what I can remember when I was in primary, high school, college, I didn't do drugs. I didn't do primary, high school, I didn't do drugs. I didn't do alcohol. I started tasting alcohol when I was in college.
All right.
I finished college. I started working when I was 24 years old.
Yeah.
That is when I met a Nigerian guy who was doing drugs.
Okay.
For the first time in my life, I felt loved.
You felt love. Okay. I want to see the connection.
Yeah.
You met a Nigerian man
Yes.
who was doing drugs.
Yes.
For the first time you felt love. What's the connection between the two?
I didn't care what he was doing
All right.
because he showered me with love, money. So I knew he was doing drugs, but I didn't care.
You didn't care.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how you got yourself into drugs.
Yes.
And he was selling, right?
Yeah, he was selling and he was still smoking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he introduced you to drugs.
It's where we used to stay. Immediately I met him after 3 months, we moved in together.
Okay.
So there's a lady he was housing, the lady who used to be, who used to go to get the drugs from Pakistan. It's like this lady was working for him.
All right.
So one day I came home and I said, yesterday I didn't sleep well. And the lady told me, just have one puff and you'll sleep like a baby. And for sure I slept like a baby.
You weren't scared because your background, you're coming from a village.
Yes.
People who have grown up in the village are a bit conservative,
Yeah.
they're reserved, they wouldn't try so much of that kind of stuff. Then again, you're a lady. And so you were not afraid the first time when you were being given this.
No, I was not afraid.
Were you a daring person when you were growing up?
No, I was not. But because of this guy, I thought it was a good thing to take drugs.
Right.
I thought it was a swag or something.
So you'd just taken about 3 months with him, and then you got into drugs.
Yes.
So what happens then after that? What happened?
So what happened? I started smoking. I was smoking heroin. Heroin is a highly addictive drug.
Okay.
So after some time, I was already hooked.
Right.
Now I was just smoking. I just used to smoke and stay in the house. I stopped working eventually. So things got worse when this guy went outside the country and he was jailed for 2 years.
Tell me about that. The effect that it was having on you that made you stop working. Is it because you wanted to be high all the time, or irresponsibility just crept in, or just you didn't want to work anymore because you're in love?
Basically, when you get into addiction, your life stops.
It does.
The drug becomes everything. You don't want to do anything. You're not interested in anything anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you
it
just want to
takes over.
smoke and sleep, smoke and sleep.
So where do you? How would you get? You get the cash for the drugs.
Now the drugs, it was plenty in the house.
It
This
was.
guy was selling drugs, so it was plenty in the house.
Did you also become? Did you also begin to peddle drugs?
Not really, but what happened when this guy was jailed, I used all the drugs he had left and the money he had left for me. I started stealing from myself. You know how you steal from yourself? You start selling your things.
Whoa.
You tell yourself, this TV, I don't watch it because I'm always high. You sell it. You give yourself excuses. You lie to yourself.
Okay.
So I sold everything. We used to live in a 3-bedroomed house. I sold everything. I was left with a rug and a mattress.
Was there anybody else apart from the lady who was selling and then this guy? Was there anybody else with you? Was it a group or you just did that on your own?
So I knew, we used to walk around with the guy when he's selling the drugs. So I knew most of his friends. So I used to go and buy drugs. I knew where to buy them and come and smoke in the house. And I got friends along the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long were you in addiction?
I was in addiction for 5 years.
5 years.
Yes.
And everything stopped.
Everything stopped immediately.
How was your relationship with your family in the 5 years?
At first, they didn't know what was happening with me. When I was growing up, I was a quiet girl. So my parents didn't really know me. So even when I started drifting away, they didn't realize. Although my mom was like, you used to come home more often, nowadays you don't come home.
You're actually giving, you're giving weight to the thing that the quiet ones are very dangerous.
It depends.
So could that have been a factor in you drifting to things like drugs? Because you're a loner, you're somebody who has always been quiet, so you have mostly internal conversations, and then you've met this Nigerian. He seems to be very interested in you, and you're looking probably for a kind of an experience, maybe something that is adventurous. Could that have been a factor?
I think what happened when I was growing up, I was not assertive. And at some point when I was young, I used to hurt inside. But I never shared with anybody. I just used to suppress my feelings.
So this one was more like it gave you an avenue now for you to come out without having to feel the responsibility of what you were saying or you were doing.
Yes.
Okay, so you were 5 years in drugs. Your family was not seeing you much. What about your friends?
I kept all my friends away. Even it got to a point where my friends were looking for me, but I used to run away from them. What happened, after now the guy was jailed, I went home.
How long was that into your addiction?
That was the second year now.
Okay.
I went home. I said I'll go back home, after selling everything, I'll go back home, put myself together, and then I come back to Nairobi. So when I went home, even my parents didn't realize I was into something. What happened, one day I came home, I was totally high. I met my uncle on the way. So I was totally high and my tongue was always blue. There were some tablets we used to buy over the counter called Rohypnol, and street name is Bogezi.
It turns the tongue blue?
Yeah, it turns the tongue blue. So my uncle realized all is not well. He told my mom. When my mom asked me, I didn't hide. I just told her the truth. But even at that point, I didn't know what I was using. I just used to know the street names.
What was the reaction of your mom? Because they'd known you as
shocked.
She'd known you as a quiet girl.
Yes.
Her
She
thinking
was
that
very
you were
shocked.
She was shocked.
So what she did, she took me to a hospital, and we were referred to Mathare Hospital. At that time, rehabs were not well known.
Okay.
So when I was taken to Mathare Hospital, I stayed there for 15 days, and then I manipulated my way out.
All right.
After I came out, I went back to smoking. Later, my parents, my dad sent my sister to come and look for me, and I was taken to the first treatment center. Normally, drug addicts are supposed to be in a treatment center at least for 6 months. I stayed for 3 months. Remember, my parents do not know me.
Yeah.
So I manipulated them again. I told them I'm fine, because when I got into drugs, I lost a lot of weight. My color changed. So after 3 months, I was looking good. I had added a kidogo weight. So they took me.
You were fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we went back home, and I stayed home for some time. And then after that, I came back to Nairobi. So when I came back to Nairobi, I started using again. So
How
that
are you
is-
getting the drugs? Because you'd sold everything.
Yeah.
Your boyfriend had been jailed.
Yes.
How are you getting the drugs?
So I started stealing from people, manipulating people, conning people I know, sleeping around for money, those kind of things.
It got that bad.
Yes.
Okay.
I could do anything to get my drug.
All right.
Yeah.
So tell us about now your turning point. You did drugs for 5 years. At what point then did you begin to feel, or was there somebody who came in and did an intervention to get you off drugs?
I lost all my relationships. One day I didn't have a place to sleep. And I said, I will either get out of this thing or I kill myself. So what I did, I don't even know what was motivating me. I said I will go to a clinic and do a HIV test because of the life I was living. If I am positive, I'll just go and kill myself. If I am negative, I'll look for help. And that is what I did. I went to a certain clinic and I did a test, and by the grace of God, it was negative.
It was negative.
Yes. So I decided to look for help. At least I knew some people who were working in rehabs, and we had met now. They were reaching out to me with a group of friends.
That's Bernard now.
Yeah.
Yes.
He had been in drugs before
Yes.
and was reaching out at that point.
Yes.
Okay, I'm coming to you. Right.
So what happened, I took myself to the 3rd treatment center.
Okay.
And when I was going there, I was down for whatever. I was willing to stay there as long as it takes,
how
because
long
I
did it
was
take?
tired. I stayed in rehab for 9 months.
For 9 months.
Yes, I was tired of that life.
Is that where you met Bernard? Okay.
No, we met before the 2nd treatment center. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. You were in drugs yourself
Yes.
before,
Yes.
and you started reaching out.
What happened was I was employed by an organization called Maisha House. They run a drug treatment. It's mainly geared towards HIV/AIDS in drug users. So in the course of going around town, and the people they use are people who were addicts.
Just tell me about that. Is that such a strong connection, drug use and HIV?
Yes, yes. With then, the statistics then, I don't know what they are right now. For alcoholics, it was between 12 to 20%, depending on which area of Nairobi you're coming from.
Okay.
And the national average then was 7.5.
All right.
For addicts who were using heroin, the ones who were smoking, it was 35%.
35%.
For injecting drug users, depending on whether they're coming from Nairobi or Mombasa, it was between 65 and 85%. And the other problem was it did not come alone. It came with brothers and sisters. HIV/AIDS came with hepatitis C, came with tuberculosis, depending on the mode of use you're using.
Okay.
And also typhoid. You could find that some heroin users could not find clean water to clean their syringes with, so they used to use water from the sewers and inject direct typhoid into their systems.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you made your decision and you stayed for 9 months in the rehab, what happened after that?
So what happened after the treatment? I didn't have anywhere to go because I had messed all my relationships. So I had to stick around. The owner of that rehab, he's the one who realized I'm good. I can work with an addict.
Okay.
So I started helping. And then there was a rehab that was being opened at Embu. So I was sent there.
So you came from somebody who was abusing substance
Yes.
to somebody who's now beginning to help people
Yes.
who were struggling.
Yes.
Okay.
So I stayed in Embu for 2 years. I came back to Nairobi when now I met my husband. And I went back to school. I did addictions counseling, and yeah.
Tell me about the feeling. Did you ever at some point feel resentment that somebody introduced you to drugs.
Yes.
Looking at what could have been, the statistics that Bernard is giving are crazy. Looking at that, looking at the life that you wasted, the relationships that were wasted, did you get to a place where you began to feel resentment that somebody introduced you to that?
Yes, in fact, I resented almost everybody, including myself. I used to blame everybody for my life. I used to blame my parents. I used to blame this guy who introduced me to drugs. I used to blame myself. I used to blame everybody and everything.
What did you blame your parents for?
I used to, at that point, I was thinking if they raised me up better, if at least they helped me to be assertive, if they loved me.
You didn't feel
Yes.
it?
Yeah, I didn't feel their love when I was growing up.
How many were you growing up?
We are 6 in our family, and I'm the firstborn.
You're the firstborn.
Yeah, but now I don't blame them anymore.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get your mind.
Okay.
Because sometimes, and some people who are struggling, who are watching, you know, we use your story also to reach out to them, because there are people who will justify why they do certain things. As a firstborn, mostly then the burden of responsibility was on you. So you'd think that they didn't pay attention a lot to you because there were other siblings. And at some point, so that becomes a resentment. For the guy who introduced you, you were in love initially. At what point did you turn to begin to resent him?
Now when I started suffering.
That's when you were on the street?
Yes. That's when I started now telling myself, if it wasn't for this guy, I could have been moving on with my life.
Was he ever released?
Yeah, he was released. He came back and he died.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did he look for you in that period? Did he try to get back what you had before?
Not really. When he came back, I was already into drugs, so we could not cope now, because now I had a different lifestyle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were, everybody who came around you, or everybody who had been in your life, you blamed them.
Yes.
So what was the role of Bernard in your life when he came in?
When I met Bernard, I was already clean.
You were clean?
Yes. When we started dating, I was already clean.
And even the resentment had gone?
Yeah, the resentment had gone. It didn't go immediately, slowly by slowly.
How did you make that turn?
I started by forgiving myself, and then I started forgiving my family. It got to a point whereby I realized forgiveness is a decision, it's not a feeling. It's not about what I'm feeling inside. It's making that decision. If I realized if I don't forgive these people, I will not move forward. It's like resentments are like a flat tire. If you don't do something about it, you will remain.
You don't move.
Yeah, you don't move.
It paralyzes you.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was not easy, but every day. I remember there's a time I used to walk saying it. I've forgiven everybody. I've forgiven everybody. I've forgiven everybody. There's somebody who was walking with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's the one who taught me about forgiveness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your family, how did they deal with that now later? Did they at some point feel resentment towards you, and did they deal with that?
Yeah, they felt like I've ashamed them.
Okay.
But later, when I started getting back to myself, the first time I went home, when my dad was called in the 3rd treatment center, in fact, he said, "Hey, that one, huyo nimewapea." That is what he said, but I don't blame him.
Bernard, how was it now walking with her? Because now you've been married like 8 years.
For the first, it was quite hard for us, both of us, because we were both in recovery. So we were still very much work in progress.
How long had you been off drugs by the time you met her?
It's 40. I've actually got 4 years on her in recovery. By the time I was meeting her on the street, I was already clean. It was about like 2, 3, 4 years clean.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you deal with some of that, the bitterness, the pain, the anger?
Especially self-esteem issues, like body image, like do I look good in this? Do I look? I had to learn the hard way.
I don't know how to.
Yeah.
Were you at some point taking the flak sometimes for what she felt everybody else had been doing?
Yeah, especially there's a family member who's still a very dear family member of ours. Most of the family are slim. She has inherited their father's body size, so she kept on calling her, "Unatoshana na Kentank." So, so she really took it to heart, and she didn't really like herself. She didn't like her legs. She didn't like the way she looked. So it was my job it still is my job to still continue affirming her. You look good, okay, and where to be honest and how to be honest.
Do you find times when she gets angry, or when she would get angry at something, so she lashes out at you for what somebody else did?
It used to happen the first days.
The first days.
Then
she went through that.
Yes.
Okay. So you walking with her was helping her to get affirmation.
Yes.
And you've done a good job, because she's looking real good.
Thank God.
Thank God.
Yeah. But you've got something that you're doing now, the
Yes.
both of you. There's
Yes.
something that you're doing with people who have been in addiction.
Yes.
Yeah, talk about it.
What has happened is that we both ended up working in treatment centers or treatment-related facilities all this time. So 5 years ago, we made a decision to start a rehab center. It's situated in Rongai. It's called Recovery Options.
Okay.
It's an all-male facility for now. We hope it grows on.
It's only for male for now.
Yes.
All right.
We find that women especially for women, treatment is harder. Even it should be longer.
Why is it harder?
Stigma, and they actually go through more issues than men. For us, nothing really phases us, even if we're beating on the street. But for them, the shame, they have also actually much more issues. Like, for example, they get shunned by the whole society. Imagine getting to a place where for men, we protect our women in the African society. Imagine it gets to a place where nobody is protecting you.
Yeah. And I want to ask you about that. Do you feel now, over the years, do you feel that you have been integrated into society?
Yeah. When I gave my life to Christ, and when
How
I gave...
long ago was that?
That was... When was this?
It's 5 years.
It's 5 years.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's about the same time you started
Yes,
doing the rehab.
We
The
dated
rehab.
for three. We dated for 3 months. We moved in together, and then we gave our lives to Christ after 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Mwikali, you see why you need to forgive?
Yes.
Yeah, but I want you just a minute, Mwikali, but I want the both of you just speak into this camera over here, to the
Okay.
people at home, in a minute, and just talk to them. Somebody who's dealing with drugs, somebody who's dealing with rejection, somebody who's dealing with all that kind of pain. What do you want them to do, and how do they let go so that they can pick up their lives again? This right here.
I'd like to start. Okay. Something she reminded me today morning as we were coming was old anger is called resentment. That's basically piling up anger over small issues. It becomes resentments. And holding resentments is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Right.
So the question is, and also another illustration is, every day we wake up in the morning and we haven't forgiven somebody, one person, we wake up and we place them on our shoulders and we let them affect and drive all our...
So your point to them is that when they don't forgive, they're doing damage to themselves.
Actually.
So they need to do that.
Yes.
Judy.
What I can tell anybody who is in addiction, it doesn't matter what you're going through right now. Just make that decision. You cannot change yourself, but God can change you. Just make that decision. God will take over. And it doesn't matter where you are right now. I give this example. It's like a dirty note. if I drop 1,000 bob here and it has mud, if I go to the shop, it doesn't lose its value.
It didn't lose its
Yes.
value.
So when you're an addict, to God, you're still the same.
Okay, but how would people reach you? You're doing the rehabilitation, so how do people get to you? Anybody who's
Can I share my phone number?
just Facebook,
Yeah.
Yes.
Twitter? Yeah.
On Facebook, my handle is Bernard Mwangi.
Bernard Mwangi.
Yes.
That's on
Also
Facebook.
hers is Judy Mwangi.
Judy Mwangi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually they find out more people friendly.
All right.
I think it's a face.
Okay. All right, Mwikali.
We have a page,
Yeah.
recovery options.
Recovery options.
Yes.
That's your page on Facebook.
Yes.
So if anybody goes there, they will get the information.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
That's been beautiful. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you.
Well, they say
All right.
forgive as quickly as you'd like Jesus to forgive you. So you go ahead and try that today. We're taking a very short commercial break. When we come back, it's all about Style My Wife. And today we are going plus size. Yes, that is exactly what is going on after this short break. Don't go too far.
This dress is not exactly, doesn't have exactly a very big difference.
Okay.
Unlike other dresses I've tried.